only thing we have to fear is
in war,
fear itself.
there is no substitute for victory.
Let us never negotiate out of fear.
We stand undivided, forever united, fighting hand in hand for the liberty we've earned, for glory and honor, for our sons and daughters, ever mindful of the lessons we've learned. Let the torch of freedom burn.
You found your way to the intersection of faith and politics. This is WallBuilders Live with David Barton and Rick Green. Thank you for joining us today. Very excited about our guests today. David, you and I both love these interviews that we get to do with World War II veterans. Well, we do quite a few veterans from different wars, but these World War II veterans are kind of special.
They are. They have a sense of, I didn't do anything special.
Yeah.
I mean, no matter how many medals they get, I just did what I was supposed to do. So they've got this sense of duty that's really cool, and they're really humble. Today we're going to talk to a B-24 pilot. The B-24 Liberator was the name of the plane, and it was a rugged bomber. It was considered a heavy bomber. They could load it up with more bombs than any others, and it was used by all four branches of the American military. And remember that going into World War II, we thought we'd never have another war, so we had let our military go completely to waste. After World War I, that was the war. They called it the war to end all wars, and we really believed our own propaganda, and so we didn't have a military. So when we got whacked by the Japanese at Pearl Harbor, that was a wake-up call, because we were isolationists. We're not going to get involved. We're not going to do anything. We don't need a military. We're not going to go to war with anybody. Well, that wasn't our choice. They brought us into the war. So you remember back in June of 2012, we talked to a World War II vet. His name was Lee Rayford, and he was at the Battle of Midway.
Oh, yeah.
And he was on those victory ships. And I wrote down what he said at the time because it's so amazing. He said those victory ships, victory ships were 455 feet long. They were loaded up with all the guns, and they carried 2,000 troops on those ships.
Wow.
And he said, and they turned out one every 4 days.
Wow.
So 450 for two football field and a half, 2,000 soldiers that they carry on this thing, loaded up with all the armament guns. They turn out, and he said,
if only we'd had those guys designing the Obamacare website.
Well, I was about to say that.
Oh, you were? Okay. I just
That's
couldn't help but think. 4 days to do it.
But here's the other one. 4 days for that. But he pointed out that Ford built a B-24 Liberator bomber every 58 minutes.
Wow.
And how many years did it take us for the Obamacare website, and it still doesn't work?
No
So,
kidding.
I mean, look at, and so what we got here is we've got one of these B-24 pilots that flew this stuff, and it's amazing stuff. But that's a little perspective. That's the plane he flew, and it is the workhorse bomber of World War II. It is a tough, rugged bomber, and it takes tough, rugged guys to be pilots of those bombers.
No doubt. When I'm doing the math here, thinking about how young these guys were, the types of things they were going to do. I love talking to them and getting those stories, because here they are, all these years later, and we'll probably have to pull it out of him. Most of these guys, it's hard to get them to talk about it, because like you said, it's just matter of fact for them. But what a privilege and honor. That's why we're doing this on July 4th. We want folks to be able to think about their freedom and where it came from, and we're going to honor those guys that fought so hard for us to be able to keep that freedom. Back in a moment here on WallBuilders Live.
This is David Barton with another moment from America's history. Today, there are numerous documented accounts of individual students being disciplined simply for bringing a Bible to school. Fisher Ames would have been appalled at this open hostility toward the Bible. Fisher Ames was the founding father who authored the House of Representatives language for the First Amendment. In his day, he vehemently objected to any attempt to minimize the Bible at schools. In fact, he declared, "Why should not the Bible regain the place it once held as a school book? Its morals are pure, its examples captivating and noble. The reverence for the sacred book that is thus early impressed lasts long, and probably, if not impressed in infancy, never takes firm hold of the mind." Founding Father Fisher Ames, the man most responsible for the wording of the First Amendment, believed that the most important school book was the Bible.
For more information on God's hand in American history, contact WallBuilders at 1-800-8-REBUILD.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome back to WallBuilders Live, the intersection of faith and politics. Thank you for staying with us today. Our guest today, World War II veteran Earl Downey from right here in Texas. Mr. Downey, thank you for joining us, sir.
You're welcome, sir.
Hey, you were a young man when you went in, 18 years old.
We could hardly wait to 18 and go in. Yes, I was 18.
Now, you were actually in college at the time, right?
Yes, sir.
At Rice University.
Yes, sir.
And did you went back to Rice when you came home?
Yes, sir. I completed Rice. Thinking about 1951.
So what made you decide to join up?
Oh, back in those days, we were all eager to join after Pearl Harbor. We couldn't wait. So I was 17, I think, during Pearl Harbor, and as soon as we became 18, we took off and joined up.
Now, you had, if I understand right, you actually had a desire to fly planes, and that came from actually getting to sit in a plane, and you kind of felt right at home.
Oh, that's true. I love planes, and I was assigned a B-24 during my training when I flew overseas. It was a 4-engine bomber. There were only two then, the B-17s and B-24s, and I love the B-24s.
So did you have flight experience before you went in? I mean, how'd you manage to get to be a pilot?
Well, we went through a big training. We started out in a small single-engine, biplanes, and then basic trainer, we flew a larger plane, and then twin engines, we flew those and completed our course and got our commissions. And we were ready to go. Luckily, I was assigned a B-24. That's what I always wanted. And when I got a B-24, I only had the co-pilot and an engineer for a long while. But when I got my orders to go, well, they assigned me a full crew, all practically young boys, gunners and all. We had a 10-man cruise.
You were still 18 at the time?
Yes, sir.
Wow. So you at 18, you have a team of 10 people that you're responsible for.
That's right. They told us you're responsible for getting them fed and clothed when we went in.
I mean, most 18-year-olds today, if you were put in that situation today, they're completely ill-prepared. I mean, what was your? Did you know that was what it was going to be like? Were you shocked that they were giving you that much authority? What was that like?
Well, we just had to take it. It's the same normal. All my crew was young. They were all 18 when I got them up in Kansas City. That's where we met and got the crew to fly overseas. My oldest man was the ball turret gunner, and he was 24, and we called him Pop.
At 24, he's Pops, huh?
Yeah.
So that seemed old, 5 years older than everybody else, huh?
That's right. But I had a great crew. Those are young boys who have been trained to shoot, and they could really, really shoot it. We had 10 50-caliber machine guns on the plane, and it was pretty lethal. It was it and the B-17 were great airplanes.
Now, for those of us that haven't been on one, try to help us picture how big is that B-24?
Oh my goodness! It had I think about 108-foot wingspan, and it had a nose gear. B-17 had a tail gear when they taxied on the ground, and it made it easy to see out. We had a platform upstairs where the co-pilot and myself and the navigator stayed, and everyone knew how to shoot. They all shot the 50-caliber machine guns, and they were just a great crew. They didn't need much training. They were just real good boys.
So was when you would go on a mission in a B-24, what was your mission like? I mean, how far would you have to fly, and what was your goal?
Well, we had our interviews in the morning, and they told us where we were flying, and normally we flew up over Austria. Linz, Austria, and Vienna, Austria were our main targets. I had 26 of them over those two in northern Italy once.
And how big of a payload did you usually have to carry?
A payload, you say?
No, payload. How much?
Payload?
Yeah.
The biggest load was just, of course, the gas we had in the tanks, and then Oh, I guess, I don't know. We had ammunition all over the place. 50 caliber ammunition. We had to load up with that. Then, believe it or not, we carried loads of tin foil. Can you believe that? And the way we did, when we go over target, they all start throwing out tin foil all over the skies. Their ground guns couldn't hone in on it then, see, because the tin foil blocked their radar.
Oh, wow.
It was amazing. It's just, but we didn't think anything about it. Just we were crazy kids, and it didn't bother us, you know.
Now, I've heard that the 24 had a tendency to catch fire. Is that true? Did y'all hear a lot of that? Did it ever happen to you?
I had one fire, and of course we extinguished it, and I don't know, I didn't hear of any more getting on fire like that, but it was a great plane. I had one time over Vienna, Austria, had 105 holes in it and the engine out, and the crazy thing still flew.
Wow. How far would you be normally off the ground when you dropped your bombs? How was that?
Well, to get a good bomb sight in was 10,000 feet or lower. We could go higher than that, but to drop them properly, we always flew a mission around 10,000 feet.
And 26s, that's quite a few now. And was that last one, before that last one, when you got the 105 hole shot in the plane, did you usually get shot up pretty good, or was that the first time y'all really took a lot of...
No, we always got the flak. It was the flak that shoot up at us. The flak is a great big burst of scrap metal, and it'd go up, and once we blocked the radar, they'd just throw it up in the skies, and we'd run through it. And that's what we hated more than anything, flak coming in. That's what put it. It was flak that put those 105 holes in my plane and knocked an engine out.
So take us to that mission. So once your engine went out, what started happening?
Well, normally we went back home to southern Italy where we were stationed. Went back there, but I couldn't keep up, so I headed out the short way, but it was over Adriatic. The mountains, Adriatic, and then the sea, you know. And it was the shortest way, but we had no help. And we did run into a couple German fighters on the way. But if you got time for me to tell you, I'll tell you. They were...
Oh, please, yes.
Well, they wagged their wings at me. They saw, I'd already jetted my ball turret to light the load. It weighed 420 pounds.
That was your guns? That was your big gun in the back?
Big gun below.
Below, okay.
And we had gobs of ammunition. We threw them out. Well, those two German fighters actually saw me jetting my ball turret. They could have very easily come up from underneath and shot me. But instead, they wagged their wings at me, and I wagged back at them. And those two guys slid in right beside me and escorted me clear to the Alps Mountains.
Wait. These were German planes.
Two German planes escorted me to safety to the Alps Mountains.
And they knew you were an American plane.
Oh, sure. Waved to me and went home. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So wait a minute. You were a sitting duck.
Wasn't mean like they were depicted.
Yeah. You were a sitting duck. They could have easily taken you out.
Oh, from underneath they could have taken me out. But instead they waved to me and slid in and protected me from getting shot at anymore.
That's amazing. Now, what was when you saw them wagging their wings at you, I mean, what does that mean normally to a pilot?
Safety. You know, friendly safety. We did that all the time. And we had an incident once that happened to a pilot, and he did that. And then his motor came back in, and he shot the two down. And he got sent back to the States. I think they're going to, that's just not right.
Wow, so that's amazing.
But they protected me clear back to the Alps Mountains, and then I had to cross the Adriatic Sea and get home. Incredible.
So you didn't lose any of your guys on that mission?
Not one.
Wow.
I had one scared to death. The rear turret gunner flak hit his guns and hit us so mad and numbed his arms. He thought he was hit. We had smoke in the plane, and he yelled at his hit, and I sent the engineer back to check on him, and his arms were numb, but he wasn't really hit. We were fortunate. I had a good crew.
Yeah, that's unusual. So did all 10 of your crew then made it through the entire war?
Every bit.
Wow.
I had a co-pilot get killed after we got back to the States.
Yeah.
But it was an accident. He rented a plane, a little small plane, went up and crashed. And I had the saddest thing I ever had to do is take his body back to Beaumont, Texas for his funeral, you know. But we, you know, at that age, we didn't mind the thing. I don't think I could do it now.
Yeah. Now, did you come home to Texas after the war?
Yes, sir.
So you were going to, after you got done in Europe, so you flew the 26 missions there.
Yes.
And as I understand, you thought you were going to be going to Japan.
When I got back down to Florida, they gave me a brand big new B-24. It was beautiful. And told me I was leaving the next day, but they had a hold on it for some reason. We didn't know why. And it kept on. We stayed there waiting for 3 months. And finally we heard they had developed the atomic bomb, you know, and they bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And that's what ended the war right there.
So you ended up not having to go to Japan at all?
Didn't have to go, not at all.
You got to come home, and you came home to Texas?
Came home and got out, went to school, finished up at Rice.
What part of Texas did you end up settling in?
Houston, where Rice was.
You stayed there?
I lived in border Texas, North Texas, but during the war, my parents had moved to Houston, so it was real nice.
And what'd you do after school?
Believe it or not, I was training to be a chemist. It took 4 years of chemistry. But I had two brothers call me one day and wanted me to join them in a building business. So that's what I spent the rest of my life in, building. As a contractor, we built 2,300 houses, and then I went into the commercial buildings and built them all over the country.
Wow. New
Orleans, New Mexico, all over Arkansas. Just build them every place.
Are you still in Houston?
No, I moved to East Texas.
Well, now, how old are you now?
I'll soon be 90.
90 years old. Well, let me ask you how after your years of sacrifice and serving and just what your generation did to save freedom, what are your thoughts today on our attitude as a nation towards that sacrifice and I guess really our gratitude? It seems like there's a lack of gratitude for our freedom. How can we get people to recognize what it takes to be free and how blessed we are?
Well, for instance, on Memorial Day here in this little town of Longview, Texas, I was invited over. There's about 400 people, and it was for the veterans. I was the only World War II veteran there. By the way, they presented me with the flag that came from Washington. It was a congressional flag that flew over the Capitol.
Nice.
Hold it up, and they presented it to me there. It just surprised me, but it was nice.
That's great.
Yeah, but we were young, and we didn't mind it at all. And I know now they have a hard time getting enough people in the service. But everyone was ready to go then.
Yeah.
After Pearl Harbor, But
well, one of the reasons we enjoy having guys like you on the program and talking about it, we just think it's important for new generations to realize this wasn't an accident. We didn't end up in this great country and have this kind of freedom and prosperity by accident. There was a lot of sacrifice that took place, and just getting people to appreciate it. In fact, my family, we had a chance to go out to the East Coast about a month ago, and we visited Arlington and got to go to the Marine Corps Memorial where my wife's grandfather was injured at Iwo Jima. So that was special for us as a family, kind of made it personal. But there's just something about seeing those places and hearing the stories that my kids, I could tell, started recognizing the value of what they had, and that you guys really did pay an amazing price for us. So we want people to know your story. We want them to know this is not free. It didn't come by accident, and hopefully get them to wake up and be willing to do whatever it takes to keep it alive for another generation.
Oh, that's great. I'm invited. I'm going in the latter part of August to Washington. They want me to come up there.
Oh, good. Have you had a chance to go to the World War II Memorial yet?
That's where I'm going.
This will be your first time?
Yes, sir.
Oh, excellent. Oh, I'm so glad you're getting to go. It's really nice. You know, there's a need to make sure that we get this communicated, because otherwise we get spoiled, don't we?
Boy, you're right there. I think kids at 18 and 19 are still spoiled.
Well, that's why, you know, when we hear about guys like you at 18 going in and doing what you were doing at 18 years old and having, you know, a crew like that and having those kind of responsibilities and just the missions and the things that you saw and went through, you know, especially for our young listeners that hear those stories, I think it makes them appreciate how easy they've got it compared to what your generation went through.
It's really different now. I know it. I can tell.
Yeah. Well, we sure appreciate your time, sir, and we just want to tell you thank you for your service. Thank you for making it possible for us to live in the greatest nation in history, and we want to make sure we pass on the torch of freedom and get this next generation willing to accept it and to stand guard and defend it. So appreciate you sharing your story with us today.
Well, thank you very much for calling here, and I appreciate it, too.
That's Earl Downey. We'll be right back with David Barton. Have you ever wanted to learn more about the United States Constitution but just felt like, man, the classes are boring, or it's just that old language from 200 years ago, or I don't know where to start? People want to know, but it gets frustrating because you don't know where to look for truth about the Constitution either. Well, we've got a special program for you available now called Constitution Alive with David Barton and Rick Green, and it's actually a teaching done on the Constitution at Independence Hall in the very room where the Constitution was framed. We take you both to Philadelphia, the cradle of liberty in Independence Hall, and to the WallBuilders Library, where David Barton brings the history to life to teach the original intent of our founding fathers. We call it the Quick Start Guide to the Constitution because in just a few hours through these videos, you will learn the Citizen's Guide to America's Constitution. You'll learn what you need to do to help save our constitutional republic. It's fun, it's entertaining, and it's going to inspire you to do your part to preserve freedom for future generations. It's called Constitution Alive with David Barton and Rick Green. You can find out more information on our website now at wallbuilders.com.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on WallBuilders Live. Thanks to all of our veterans for being willing to put their lives on the line so we can be free. David, what a privilege. I know you enjoyed that. You love hearing those stories.
Expectations, bro.
Yeah.
An 18-year-old pilot.
Oh, man.
With 10 guys in the crew, and he is over that crew of 10 guys, and all of them are 18 except a 24-year-old guy they call Pops.
I love it. I love it.
But that's all about expectations.
Yeah.
You see, we wouldn't expect, and we wouldn't even think it's capable of 18-year-old today of being in charge of 10 others and flying that by himself and making all the decisions they got to make and all those missions he flew. But that's exactly what they did, and that was the expectations back then. But he said something that got me really going, and so I had to look this up and see, because he said that they flew their missions over Vienna. And I don't think I've ever talked to anybody who fought in Vienna. I don't think of Austria as a center of war.
Yeah.
I mean, the Rhineland and all the other stuff, and Czechoslovakia and Poland, but I'd never thought of Austria. He's the first guy I've ever heard talk about Austria. And so I was looking it up, and it now makes a lot of sense. And so just while he was talking, here's what I found. Number one, Hitler was born in Austria, which I had forgotten that. So Hitler's from Austria. It turns out the Nazi Party was the strongest in Austria. And they were really, and of all the concentration camps that they ran, 40% of all concentration guards were from Austria.
No kidding.
40% came out of that little bitty nation. They were hardcore Nazis. And that's where the first real visible anti-Jewish stuff happened. Because in 1938, Hitler told them, you will surrender, you will give up to me, you will become part of the fatherland. And at that time, there were 180,000 Jews in Vienna, and 120,000 got killed. So they started wiping out very visibly at that point in time. So that's why, and by the way, here's what Hitler did. After Hitler took over Austria, he let them vote on who their government was going to be. Now grab this. He's coming in with troops. He lets them vote. There was one question on the ballot. And the question on the ballot is, do you approve of the Nazi Party list of the 813 members that we want to put in the government? And the answer is yes or no. We've already chosen 813 candidates. And, of course, when you got a gun pointed at the back of your head, and by a margin of 99.5%, the voters said, yes, we approve of the 813.
Wow.
So that's a free election under Hitler and under a lot of places. But as it turned out, those bombings he did, it resulted, Vienna was bombed 52 times during the war. 87,000 homes were destroyed, which was 20% of the entire city. Only 41 civilian vehicles survived the raids.
Wow.
So they took the heart out of the Nazis. And that's, I had never heard someone bombing Vienna, and I wondered why. And I looked it up, and that's why. And by the way, that was really cool. They stood in the back of the plane and threw out tinfoil.
Yeah.
I mean, we have
Yeah.
all those things today on the planes. That whole interview was really cool. But that 18-year-old doing that kind of stuff in World War II.
That's interesting stuff about Austria as well, and of course that's where Glock's made. So now you're the one with a Glock.
Oh, that's
I
right,
use a 1911. And my 1911's made here.
Made here.
Yours is made in Austria.
Yeah.
So just had to get a little dig in on you there. Thank you very much to all of our veterans. Appreciate your service. What a blessing. Hey, think about July 4th this weekend, not as just a time to go out and have a barbecue. Think about the fact that you're blessed to be free in this incredible nation. Go read the Declaration of Independence. You've been listening to WallBuilders Live.
We stand undivided forever.